Oh my god, are we actually doing this? WotC just dropped 4 new subclasses for playtesting, and all of them are expressly tied to the Dark Sun setting. The setting I was just talking about and said they could never revisit. More on that later though, let's talk some busted subclasses. Circle of Preservation Druid. Talking about busted subclasses, this one definitely looks sus at first. You're a druid with a focus on restoration of places that have been destroyed by exploitation and greed. You get some pretty good spells, mostly flavor based, but Bless is very nice, and you get Preserved Land. Bonus action, expend a use of Wild Shape, and you create a 15-foot cube of energy at a point on the ground within 120 feet. Whenever a creature ends its turn in the cube, you can either give them 1d4 plus your druid level temporary hit points, or end the frightened or poisoned condition affecting them. It's the Twilight Cleric. It's just Twilight Sanctuary, which was busted when it came out and is still busted now. A regenerating pool of hit points for every ally every round is always crazy. Now, a 15-foot cube isn't as good as the 30-foot sphere the Twilight Cleric covers, but this is still a good amount of ground. It's just so much regeneration that monsters have to beat through to even damage your party. Having this effect on, be it from a Twilight Cleric or from this guy, fundamentally changes the mathematics the GM has to use when balancing every encounter for the entire game. Also, small point, why 1d4 plus druid level? At that point, just say druid level plus your proficiency bonus and avoid having to roll a die every single turn. It slows the game down. Just proficiency bonus plus druid level. You can also move your cube as a bonus action on subsequent turns up to 30 feet. And you get a nice flavorful ribbon feature to do with casting spells and material components, so you don't expend them or you don't need them. It's fine. Level 6 and your cube gets better. You and all allies inside it get a bonus to their Constitution saving throws equal to your wisdom modifier, #from concentrate. Seriously, this is amazing for all spellcasters to hold on to their spells. Also, whenever the cube enters an enemy's space, or they enter its space, or end their turn inside it, but only once per turn, they have to make a wisdom save. On a fail, they take 2d10 radiant and have their speed halved until the end of their next turn. On a success, they just take half damage. Level 10, you can cast Lesser Restoration and Greater Restoration without a spell slot a number of times per day equal to your Wisdom modifier. Not bad, although these spells are situational, it's still free spells. Finally, at level 14, your Battle Cube grows to 30 feet inside, and you can use your reaction to halve the damage anyone takes inside that cube from a single attack. It's not bad, although the really big, dangerous effects come from failed saving throws at this level, not from single attacks. Still, it's not like druids have great reaction spells or abilities that I can think of, so you'll probably be using this every single round. All in, this is a very flavorful subclass. I do like the feels, although mechanically it's less of a let's heal the world type vibe and more of I have a very dangerous cube, don't mess with me kind of vibe. The biggest problem I have with it is just that we don't need another Twilight Cleric. Sure, you can share mechanics between subclasses, but that Twilight Sanctuary is an incredibly iconic part of the Twilight Cleric vibe. Do we really need it here as well? I mean, regenerating temporary hit points isn't really on the flavor of the class anyway. That isn't regeneration, that's steroids. Thematically, this would make much more sense if it was healing creatures and plants. Maybe something closer to the Healing Spirit type of spell effect. If you want a consecration and protection themed subclass, I think the Shrine Warden Cleric does this a lot better. Ryoko's guys know what I'm talking about. But yeah, as it stands, this druid is very good. It's probably not as overpowered as the Twilight Cleric is though, because those guys get a ton of broken stuff like by level 3. But don't sleep on that damage plus halving the movement of enemies you move the cube through, or the +5 to everyone's concentration saving throws.
Whoa, shut up! I've just seen we're in a TTRPG expansion book.
Oh, are you talking about Scorched Basin?
The ultimate dessert punk setting? This is it! We're famous! A setting full of caked up punk chicks made of actual cake? It can't fail!
No, dude, it's the ultimate desert punk setting. And yeah, we're a collaborator on it. We voice a character.
Oh, desert punk. Like Mad Max.
Hell yeah. Scorched Basin is a human-first, epic expansion for TTRPGs. It's got rules expansions for daring land vehicle combat, #pod racing, a new one-of-a-kind magic system to explore, gargantuan monster masters, 5 different factions, tons of new player options, awesome battle maps, and everything you need for a shot of adrenaline to the heart of your adventures. It's system agnostic, so it can slip perfectly into any game system, and it's been worked on by over 100 creators in the space. Look, there's me, and loads of amazing other creators too. If you like this channel and like the look of the Scorched Basin, backing it is a great way to support both of us, as I get directly supported by every backer that uses my link in the description. There's also a special tier on Kickstarter limited to only 500 backers that gets you a limited edition, numbered and signed metal print from the Scorched Basin, signed by the artists themselves. For the ultimate Dune and Mad Max inspired setting for any TTRPG, check out the Scorched Basin today. Link in the description. Gladiator Fighter. Gladiators are just as much performers as they are warriors. Apparently. I think in both Dark Sun and real life, most gladiators were desperate, segregated slaves. But I get it, we're doing Gladiator the TV show, not real world commentary here. More on that later though. Level 3 gets you the Brutality feature, which essentially lets you add an additional weapon mastery on top of an attack and get an additional buff. Bleed gives you extra damage on the attack, equal to your Charisma modifier. Bluff gives you advantage on the next save you make before the end of your next turn. That's pretty good. And Stumble says the target can only take an action or a bonus action next turn, not both. Remember, that is on top of a weapon mastery effect and the initial weapon mastery effect of whatever weapon you're using anyway. However, you can only use this a number of times equal to your Charisma modifier per short rest. So unless you're going a Warlock dip, Pact of the Blade, all in on Charisma kind of thing, this is going to be 3 uses, probably at most, per combat. And God forbid you get caught without a short rest, because then you got nothing. You also get a bonus to acrobatics and athletics equal to your charisma modifier and an extra proficiency. Level 7 is the Flourish Parry. As a reaction, when a creature hits you with a melee attack, you can add your charisma modifier to your AC. If that causes the attack to miss, you can then retaliate with an attack against that target as part of the same reaction and gain one of your brutality effects without expending a resource. You can only counterattack in this way once per long rest, but you can get another use of it by expending a use of your second wind. Yes, it's pretty limited in terms of uses, but you can use the effect to buff your AC every round. There's no resource limit on that. Sure, it's no shield spell, but it's okay. Level 10, you get more options for your brutality feature. An upgrade to your cleave, a little extra movement after pushing an enemy, even a way to give an enemy disadvantage on their next saving throw. That one's really good. Level 15, whenever you use your action surge or second wind, you regain an expended use of your brutality. I get it, they want to give you more uses of your core feature, and they tied it to charisma, which is kind of a dump stat for fighters. But burning your second wind for it means you get even fewer uses of your level 7 parry, which is the cooler feature in my opinion. Plus, even if you action surge, you can't use brutality twice on a turn, which feels like an oversight. Level 18, you get mutilate, which lets you maim someone. When you hit a bloodied creature with an attack roll, you can force them to make a constitution saving throw, which uses your charisma modifier when calculating the save DC. I get it, the subclass is tied to charisma, but really? Is having higher sex appeal really making it more likely that you can mutilate someone on a hit? Surely it just makes sense for this to come from your strength or dex, right? If they fail, they can only make 1 attack per attack action, their speed falls by half, and their AC drops by 2. That's a pretty solid debuff. Some high-level enemies are attacking 4, 5, even 6 times every single turn. You're knocking that down to 1 and reducing their AC. However, it only lasts until they regain any hit points, so if a creature can heal themselves, it's kind of worthless, and once a creature fails this saving throw, you can't do it again until you finish a long rest. I don't mind that as a design angle, basically saying you can do this as much as you like until it succeeds. But you can only do this on creatures that are already dying, so the combat might be kind of close to being over anyway, and this is a level when wizards and sorcerers are casting Wish. Would it really kill them to give the fighter maybe 3 or even 5 uses of this per day? Would that be really crazy when other people are casting Wish? I think I came across quite negative here, but I think mechanically the Gladiator is fine. I just think it's competing a little bit with the Battle Master, which has a similar thing of upgrading attacks with extra damage and bonus effects, except the Battle Master is way more versatile and can work in both melee and ranged, whereas the Gladiator is aggressively melee focused. And unless you're going in with Pact of the Blade to attack using your charisma, the save DC and the number of uses of your features is always going to be quite low. Defiled Sorcery. What if sorcerers were assholes? Let's find out. Level 3, you get Defile and Empower. Once per turn, when you roll damage for a sorcerer spell, you can expend some of your unexpended hit dice, roll them, and add the result to the damage of that spell. For a first level spell, it's 1d6, third level is 2d6, fifth level is 3d6, etc. As long as you have the hit dice to expend. It's okay. Save this for AoE spells where the extra damage to one of the damage rolls is still going to damage multiple creatures. You also get Life Steal, where you force a creature to make a con save. If they fail, instead of spending your unspent hit dice, you can expend theirs. It's fine, until you remember that enemy hit die are determined by their size. Use this on a gargantuan creature and you are adding 2d20s to the damage of your fireball at level 5. That is hilarious. Your spell list itself is kind of mid, but it's thematic, so sure. Level 6 is Corrupted Caster. When you use a bonus action to convert sorcery points into a spell slot, you can roll a number of d6s equal to the level of the slot you create, and gain that as temporary hit points. Also, if a creature hits you with a melee attack while you have any temporary hit points, they take necrotic or poison damage equal to your charisma modifier. This feature doesn't seem to be specifically tied to the temporary hit points you get from Corrupted Caster, so the temporary hit points can come from anywhere, which means 2024 polymorph stocks just jumped. Also, damage from your sorcerer spells ignore resistance to necrotic and poison damage. Level 14 is Withering Aura. When you use your innate sorcery, you get a 15-foot aura. When a creature within that aura hits you, you can reduce the damage by an amount equal to your charisma modifier. This doesn't use a reaction, it's on every attack, it's good. Also, when an enemy dies within the aura, you regain 1d4 sorcery points, but only once per aura use. Finally, at level 18, you get an immunity to the poisoned and exhausted conditions, and your aura increases in size to 30 feet. Also, enemies can't regain hit points inside your aura. As always though, the real sorcerer capstone feature is 9th level spellcasting. This subclass is quite good. I think the most fun part about it is it acts as a kind of mirror to the Druid subclass we discussed earlier. Seriously, if you put them side by side, a lot of features are kind of like inversions or mirrors of each other with the auras and the damage reduction. It's a cool vibe. It's also nice to see hit dice used as a resource, seeing as they're ignored in 95% of actual D&D games. The downside is, I think mechanically, it's maybe a bit dull. A bit of extra damage, a bit of temporary hit points, but only when you're converting sorcery points into spell slots, when 90% of the time you want to be doing the opposite. I think the fact that you can use enemies' hit dice to power up your own spells is hilarious, but the fact that those could be D20s seems like it might be a mistake, and maybe they'll take it out. I like it because it's silly, but it is mechanically odd balance-wise that the exact same feature could be absolutely busted or absolutely trash, depending on the size of the creature you're fighting, which is nothing to do with its CR or level. Still, it's all pretty solid, very flavorful. All of these subclasses are very flavorful. Sorcerer King Warlock. What if your patron was a fascist dictator? Let's find out. You get these spells, which are pretty great actually, and whenever you cast a spell from this table, you can do so without verbal or material components. You also get expertise in intimidation, which is a really good roleplay buff they've just thrown in, and you can cast the spell Command as a bonus action without a spell slot a number of times equal to your charisma modifier. Command is a great spell, and because you're casting it without a spell slot, as per 2024 spellcasting rules, you can still cast a leveled spell as your main action. 6th level. Whenever you cast a spell with a Warlock spell slot, you can erupt power in a 30-foot emanation. Each creature in that area gains one of these effects. They have advantage on all attack rolls until the end of their next turn, or they must succeed on a wisdom save or be frightened of you until the end of their next turn. This is great. Drop a bonus action Armor of Agathis turn 1 to juice yourself up and trigger this, and then all your Eldritch Blasts for this round and next round are coming in at advantage, plus everyone else's in the entire party. You can do this once per short rest, and you regain a use when you use your magical cunning. It's basically a once per combat thing. Level 10. When an enemy hits you with an attack roll, you can force them to reroll. If they then miss, they take damage equal to your Warlock level. You can do this a number of times equal to your charisma modifier per long rest, and it's good, although bear in mind that at higher levels, when enemies have got like a plus 15 or more to hit, you might not get attacks blocked as often as you think. Level 14, you get get Absolute Tyranny. When you cast command, you can target 2 creatures instead of just 1, and any creatures that are frightened of you automatically fail their save. Seeing as Command Grovel basically blanks an enemy's entire turn and knocks them prone, and you can target 2 people with this as a bonus action every turn without a spell slot, it's pretty cracked. I love Warlocks, but let me be biased, I think mechanically this one is awesome. However, I think flavor-wise, it might be a little bit limiting. Don't get me wrong, the flavor is on point, but I struggle to see how you could ever really play a good person with that flavor and these mechanics. You're essentially an SS agent, but I'm guessing your GM isn't cool enough to create a Hanny Shaft NPC to seduce and then murder you, which is definitely what you deserve. Even the Fiend Warlock, it's very easy to say that, like, I'm using fiendish powers, but I'm not endorsing fiend behavior, but this is like totally all in on authoritarianism and control. But you can rewrite the flavor however you like. I would definitely change the flavor so you didn't have to be an asshole, because being an enforcer for a fascist is kind of like human garbage territory. It also reminds me a bit of the 2024 Glamour Bard, which I really like, without stepping on its toes. Honestly, this is a big win mechanically. Honestly, all these subclasses are pretty good. This is probably the best Unearthed Arcana we've seen in a long time. However, I think the most interesting question is, does this mean Dark Sun is coming back? Remember, we also had a Scion class UA revealed not that long ago, which would also fit in a Dark Sun world. I made a video about the 4E Dark Sun and how valuable I feel its environmentalist message is even today. I would like to see Dark Sun come back if it's done well. But that is the tricky part. You could probably slap the Dark Sun name on almost any product and it would sell well because people have heard of it. But will Wizards of the Coast in 2025 be engaging with the themes of slavery, racism, unfettered capitalism, exploitation, and wealth inequality? Has there ever been a tyrannical society that wasn't built fundamentally on the othering of a group of undesirable people? Be it race, sexuality, gender, or religion, tyrants rely on this rhetoric to convince their populace to attack each other rather than unite, turn around, and kill the guy who is actually ruining the world. And seeing as the Gladiator theme, even back in 4E, was very explicitly one of slaves, it says so in the book, and this Gladiator seems to be getting its theming from the American Gladiator TV show, it kind of makes me a little hesitant that they are going to meaningfully engage with what makes Dark Sun valuable. Which, sure, I guess, not every book has to matter, but it's way less interesting. So if they do make Dark Sun and it's like this, then yes, it might have some really fun subclasses, but it's not really going to be Dark Sun. Or they could do it really well. This is only a UA after all, never count a creative person out. Also, by the way, we still don't even know they're making a Dark Sun book. This could all be for some kind of compendium of subclasses that are drawn across multiple planes of existence or settings or something like that. Speaking of expansions, this month's D&D expansion that I created includes a new Paladin subclass, the Oath of the Arrow, alongside a bunch more awesome stuff. If you support on Patreon today, you get access to over 200 pages of awesome stuff. We're talking adventures, maps, new species, new subclasses, and a bunch of player options ready to play immediately. Please check it out at the link below. Even a tiny bit of support makes a massive difference. Also remember to like and subscribe, check out other videos on the channel, and I'll see you next time.